reconvene after our closed session. Any reportable action, City Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the City Council met in closed session with respect to the anticipated litigation item on the agenda. No final action was taken, no action was taken, and nothing further to report.
Thank you. With that, we will adjourn the closed session and open up as the Selma City Council regular meeting, July 1st, 2019. And our invocation tonight will be led by Pastor Maria Tafoya of the First Christian Church. Welcome.
Will you pray with me? Gracious and loving God, we thank you for this day you have given us, for the blessings you pour out upon us, and the challenges you place before us. In this week when we celebrate our nation's independence, we give you thanks for the freedoms and the responsibilities we enjoy as residents of this beautiful city and our beloved nation. We thank you especially for those who work so hard to make living in Selma a blessing. Our police and firefighters, the men and women who care for streets and parks, for those who work inside this building, and for those who serve faithfully as elected officials. We are grateful also for the volunteers and the many organizations who serve our city and her residents, and all who have taken time out of their busy lives to come to this meeting tonight. We give thanks for their gifts and talents and their dedication to the people of this city. Our history books tell us the founders of this nation had significant differences of opinion, and yet were able to work together for one common cause, to ensure the rights and well-being of all the people of the nation. Lord, we ask that we too will be able to come together for the common good, regardless of any differences, treating one another with courtesy and respect, that we might best serve the residents of Selma. We ask all these things in the name of your Son, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Stand.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Avalos,
Here.
Councilmember Guerra,
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco,
Here.
Mayor Robertson.
Here. Thank you, Pastor Tafoya. I would say your words were earth-shaking, but I think it was the force of your words as well as the construction going on next door. Thank you. Thank you. Potential conflicts of interest. Any council member has a potential conflict of interest may announce the item now and recuse themselves from discussing and voting on the matter. Oral communications. At this time, any of the member of the public may address the City Council on any issue within its jurisdiction, but not on the agenda. No action or discussion will be taken on any item raised tonight. Items of interest will be referred to the City Manager for further review. Members of the public will please keep their remarks to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to step up and say something tonight?
I always like talking. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. Mark Armenta, Unit Director, Boys and Girls Club. Let's see, where did I start? Beginning of the month, we took a small group of freshmen and sophomore to Cal Poly for a college field trip. It was great. It was exciting for me as a unit director, but not only as for me, but the 5 members that we took. It was eye-opening because the college was still going. They were in their finals. Students were moving out. It was like a busy mini city. The 5 members got to eat lunch in their cafeteria, which is very, 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 very healthy food. That was the big eye opener for them compared to eating food at Fresno State or City College. Matter of fact, it was eye opening to me. What I thought was chicken turned out to be tofu. So all I seen was the bell peppers and onions, and I thought, oh man, it looks like some good fajitas. And when I took a bite, I'm like, oh, okay. But overall, we also had one member that had never been to the beach. So after the college tour and lunch, and we made our trip to the to Pismo Beach. That was very exciting for one member who is 13 and had never touched the beach, never seen the beach. They thought it was a lake. They said, "Mark, are we going to a lake?" And I'm like, "A lake?" I'm like, "It's Pismo Beach. It's a state beach." You know, so that was a big highlight of that trip. We are hustling and bustling. The club is packed right now. Summer's here. We got Blackbeards next Thursday, taking 40 members to Blackbeards, which has jumped from 20 to 30. Now we're doing 40 members to Blackbeards. Some of the members have never been to Blackbeards either, you know. So we're going to be out there all day, July the 10th at Blackbeards. I've been approached also by a couple new businesses in here in Selma. One of them is called JM Customs, and the other one is Nava Brothers Auto Detailing. They're located right here on Whitson, 1939 Whitson. So tomorrow what they're going to do is they're going to host a Taco Tuesday. They're going to be offering people who stop by, make a donation, they'll give them tacos. They said it's an unlimited amount of tacos. So for every dollar somebody comes by and donates, they'll get 2 tacos, 10 tacos, 20 tacos. However, the money's going to come back to the club. Like I said, there are two new businesses here opening up here in Selma. I'm encouraging them to go by and be chamber members and to start making their way into the city council, and so you guys I can introduce them to you. But that'll take place tomorrow on, once again, it's 1939 Whitson. It's going to start at 6 o'clock. All the proceeds will benefit the Boys and Girls Club. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great evening.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Thanks for everything you do. Anyone else like to step up this time?
Good evening, distinguished city council members and honorable mayor and the constituents of Selma. My name is Benita Duran. This is Susana. Hi, I'm Susana Pinal. I'm a partnership specialist for the Census Bureau too. Greetings from the U.S. Census Bureau. This evening we would like to share with you that we are implementing our CPEP program, Community Partnership Engagement Program. In your briefing folders, we have included information regarding how the 2020 census will be conducted. Starting March of 2020, each household will receive an invitation indicating the website and code to use to complete their census questionnaire. It will also include a phone number, a 1-800 phone number that each member can call individually from a household or from any type of cell phone or landline to complete their census questionnaire. Also, if you notice on the left side of your briefing folder, it has specific dates on the flip side, which indicates reminder notices that will be mailed to the home. Once we get to the month of April, and if we still have not received a response, then we implement NARFU, non-response follow-up, which census enumerators using their handheld will make up to 6 PIs, which are known as private visits, to conduct census interviews. In addition, I have included our 2020 census fact sheet on confidentiality, and I'd like to reiterate to the public that the census is safe. We do not share anyone's information with the public, nor do we exchange it with any federal or government entity. In addition, it is not our business if you owe back taxes, if you owe child support, if you have warrants. That is not what we collect the information on. The information is on data. On the right side of your folder includes a report on funding. The 2020 census, as in censuses before, the data is used to distribute $675 billion of federal funding. Many of your constituents rely on programs such as SNAP, CARE, LIHEAP, Low Income Energy Heating Assistance Program, Medicaid, Medicare, Title I programs, free lunch programs, resources for Title VII and individuals of special needs. Census data is utilized exactly for that purpose, to make sure that funding, especially in the city of Selma, receives their appropriate funding to meet the needs for your public safety enhancements, roads, and municipalities. In addition, We also conduct trainings and presentations to your community, to your schools, and we'd like to establish a partnership with your city and move forward in any activities or public events or any recommendations that you may give that you would like for us to attend and explain and teach the community how to apply and complete their 2020 census. Susana?
También lo queremos decir que nosotros podemos conducir entrenamientos en español y así poder informar a la comunidad que el censo es seguro y es necesario para todos y poder tener el dinero que todos debemos tener en nuestras ciudades. Gracias.
In addition, I have placed a card regarding our 2020 census jobs. Our area census office in Fresno will cover Selma along with Merced, Sanger, Tulare, and Kings County, and Hanford. We need to employ over 500 individuals for office positions, IT and IT specialists, also NARFU and USIS that deal with operational procedures. Any questions?
Yeah, so are you gonna be doing this rollout to all the cities?
Correct.
I mean, you've just come here with 3 minutes tonight.
And I can return if you would like to make a full presentation on the road to 2020.
Census is very important. It's how we're counted, and you know it doesn't take reading the newspaper every day to know that hugely important for California to keep that representative and to keep our population numbers accurately reported. So the more exposure I think you get out there, that you're not going to get people into trouble, and that this is ultimately beneficial to California, I think the better. So
Correct,
in the future,
Mayor.
it'd be nice if you would come back and do a presentation for us.
Susana will provide with our business cards. You can contact us via email, and we'll make ourselves ready available to come out. We have a team of 6 partnership specialists, bilingual, and for August, we'll have 2 additional Hmong speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very
Really
much.
good presentations.
My question was, since we have a large Punjabi community, do we have someone who can communicate that to them as well as in Spanish?
When we open our area census office in Fresno, we will have 8 different languages, including Punjabi.
And we could tell our constituents that everyone's going to be counted.
Correct.
Everyone's going to be contacted one way or the other. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else like to step up for oral communications tonight? Okay, with that, we'll move on to special presentations from Calvans. You're on.
Mayor, council members, and city staff. I want to thank you for allowing me to do a presentation. Should say retired there. I retired 2 weeks ago, but I still love to do presentations. Calvans is a public transit agency. Fresno COG is a member. We have 14 JPAs, 16 counties. Charge. There we go. Those are the member agencies. We started with 5 back in 2011. We've now gotten to 14 COGs, JPAs representing 16 counties. Fresno COG's been a founding member. It costs nothing to be a part of Calvans, but it allows Fresno COG to Fresno County to have van pools for its members, residents, and also for businesses to have their employees use Calvans. You can travel in or out of the county. Most of the vans in Fresno County travel out to the prisons that are correction officers. Most of your farm workers travel out to the fields back and forth. No cost to join, no cost to leave. As a member of Calvans, you can leave whenever you want, you can join whenever you want. The only benefit to you is you can utilize the Calvans van pools as assets. Am I going backwards? Bear with me, technical difficulties. Okay, this is a shot of the overall state of California. We've serviced vans clear down to Yuma, El Centro, south and along the coast to Ventura, Oxnard, Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, Salinas Valley, up into Stockton. We have vans up in Napa, all served out of our office in Hanford. How we control all these. There's right now 800 vans out there. Will be 1,000 within about another 2 years. All vans have GPS on them, so we can track who's driving, how fast they drive, the speed. To start the van, the driver has to have a PIN, unique PIN for that driver. It has a fob inside the vehicle and a Garmin. He can either type in 4-digit PIN or he can put a fob to the fob reader. The van then turns on. It's activated for 1 minute. If he doesn't start in 1 minute, he has to do it all over again. So that driver, basically, we know who the driver is. When we look at our map there, it says Jose Rosarita's driving the van, and it shows where he's going, how fast he's going. We can breadcrumb trail him where he went. They have a fuel card in every vehicle. Basically, the fuel card's part of the package, and the fuel card has a PIN as well. So he can go to any service station other than AM/PM, Costco, and Safeway to get fuel. The location speeds are monitored, so we basically check the speeds, make sure how fast they're going. If they're going too fast, we'll basically pull them out of the vehicle. Where they are, they can't be at Walmart, they're a Mati, place like that. If we find them there, again, we will pull them out of the program or admonish them, no, you can't take it to the beach. It's only for to and from work. All drivers are enrolled in the poll notice program. As a public entity, all the drivers are added to our poll program. We continually monitor their license. If they get a speeding ticket, any change to their license, we get an update on that. Again, if they get a DUI, they're coming out of the vehicle. We start with 2 points, which is a good driving record. Gets worse than that, we pull them out. Again, 800 vehicles, 100% of the operational cost comes from the riders. We do not have any state or local taxes coming to us. I wish we did, but we don't. So all of our operating costs come from what we bill the persons in the van. Again, that's 100%. We have 24/7 support of our vehicles. There's somebody standing by tonight. Should your van headlight not work, need a flat tire, or something's going wrong with it, they'll roll out of bed, come to you, give you a spare van, fix your seatbelt, fix your headlight, whatever it takes. We have 6 locations that happens. El Centro, Ventura, Santa Maria, Greenfield, Stockton, that does the same thing as Hanford. Serving 16 counties, we are the only public agency in the United States that has a deal with the Federal Department of Labor for providing van pools to farm workers. I repeat, we're the only one in the United States that has that. We did an MOU 2 years ago, which allows the van pools to go to the field to comply with the State Department of Labor and Federal Department of Labor without violating any mitzvah laws. And I don't want to go into that. It's a lot of. But suffice to say, 85% of our farm labor vans, all 600 of them, receive a voucher from their employers that covers 100% of the cost of their trip. Why do they do that? Well, IRS rules allow you, the employer, to provide your employee a voucher to take public transit. We're public transit. If you're a contractor, you're worried about the Department of Labor beating up for unlicensed driver, unsafe vehicles in the field, et cetera, et cetera. Well, using our program, the contract can assure that his driver's license, the vehicle is insured, the vehicle is maintained, he has no liability. And so that's why 85% of all our farm labor vans are getting a free ride through courtesy of the employer, about $6 million a year. Qualifications, 25 years of age, Class C license, nothing special. Can be a Class C license from any state. We've had Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Utah drivers driving in our program as long as they have a valid license. Class B physical, not a Class B license, but a Class B physical. It means they don't have diabetes, they're in good shape. Less than 3 points on DMV record. Again, if they get if they get 3 points or more, we'll pull them out. No DUI or reckless driving in the past 5 years. That's pretty simple, and so we don't go through all the rigmarole. We can have somebody in our office at 10 o'clock in the morning, go to DMV, get an H6, go to our clinic, and by 1 o'clock, be out of our office with a van by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A lot of farm workers do that. Member benefits. More federal funds to FACTS. We generate $2 million a year for FACTS. We count all of our trips, all of our vans. We're a public transit agency, so we count how far everybody drives, how many cars come off the roadway. That basically means we report that on behalf of vans in Fresno FACTS's area. That reporting on behalf of FACTS generates FACTS $2 million a year. Additional money they can use, federal money they can use for their transit. Greenhouse gas reductions. Basically, we report on behalf of your COG greenhouse reductions that occurred in your county through use of our vans. We basically, again, track all the vehicles sorted by county. You have an added transit options. Basically, anybody in this county can basically call us if they need a van. If may work better than the buses. Fewer vehicles. We have 84 to 100 vehicles on any given day in Fresno County. Average 13 riders per van. That's that many vehicles not on the roadway. Again, local funds for you guys and a safe transportation for farm workers. quick study. We are a public transit agency, so if you look above there, you see the very first line. Sorry for all the numbers, but CalVans generates 50% of the passenger miles traveled in Fresno County between us and FACTS. So we generate as many passenger lane miles in our vans as does FACTS in their buses. Below there, you'll see the increase in passenger lane miles for Fresno. In 10-11, we were doing 10 million miles. Now we're doing 24 million miles. These are miles that did not happen in Fresno County. These are miles that we eliminated through the use of our program. Enough small stuff. This is just a quick shot of we generated $40 million since our program's been in place. $40 million. $9 million last year. You'll see up there the number one line, that's Fresno. Generated 1.8 million for them last year. Year before it was 2.6, dropped because the number of vans dropped, but we keep track of those on a yearly basis and report the funds to, and the average van generates the average van coming to Fresno generates $17,000 for Fresno FACTS. Okay, and this is Selma. You'll see vans parked around Selma. I talked to the police chief. If you see it in a way of somebody, call us. Don't tow it, please. Call me, and we'll get that van out of there within an hour. So you'll see them parked at the shopping center. You'll see them parked around town. The ones around town are generally farm workers. It's parked in front of their house. They have no other place to park it, and that's where they leave from in the morning. The correction officers park at Lowe's or at the other shopping center there. I work continually with the shopping center owners to make sure they behave, park in the back part of the parking center, etc. But again, if you see them, they're generating 13, 14 trips, eliminate that many trips a day. Have any money? Have any questions, call us. We have a website that generates where we're at, and that basically is interactive. You can go on there and figure what it costs to be in a van. You can see where all the vans go. You can see what each person's paying. It's great to check out. And that's it. Questions?
Thank you.
Any chance that you could be bringing a facility here to Selma? Because I'm very familiar with CalVans. My husband's a driver for CalVans for CDRC.
Okay.
And I know the problems that they run into with parking at Food for Less and Home Depot and these places.
Moving around trying to find a safe
They
place.
are. And so they were asking, because Selma is a centralized area,
It is.
it'd probably be much more feasible to put a facility here in Selma versus having one in Hanford, because of the prisons being north and south. And you're right.
Right.
You get so many people coming Fresno, Clovis, here to Selma to Vanpool, and then people from all over, Parlier, Reedley, just Sanger, and it's just seems like it would be a feasible thing to do.
We have no official parking place other than the Lemoore High School. And so we basically encourage the vans to park wherever they can safely.
Yeah.
So I work with Lowe's, Home Depot, and all the cities. It's just too expensive to buy a piece of land for them to park on there. So we haven't provided that. Because when I charge your husband more money for the privilege of parking in a nice, safe place, they're going to say, well, gee whiz, I can find someplace else to park that doesn't charge me money. So we've been down that road. All right. So, but anyway, is it working out good for him?
It is.
Okay. And he saves a lot of money?
Sure.
Okay, good.
Ron, walk me through that. So you let's say you're a CO and you want to be a driver of a van. How do you get in touch with California?
You would call our office. We'd ask you to send a copy of your driver's license to us. We would run that through the DMV system. It would come back saying you got 2 or less points. If that happens and you're 25 years of age, we're going to then send you down to get a physical at one of the clinics. We have them all over the place. With that physical in hand, we'd meet you at wherever you're at, give you the van, fill the paperwork out, and you're off and running.
And then how long do you keep the van?
As long as you want, as long as you pay your bill each month.
And you're just responsible for the heavy-duty maintenance.
We do everything. Yeah, we service the van on site. There's nothing. You just drive the van and collect the checks or cash from the other riders once a month, send to us. You would call us if you have anything wrong with your van, any issues. We'll come and detail your van occasionally. The gas card lets you go through the car wash occasionally. But we try to make it seamless for you. We just want you to
And you
drive.
tend to work with the ranchers, the farm owners to
Yeah.
distribute the vans? You work with the farm workers, or about 50-50, or
No,
both?
the agreement's with all the drivers in all cases. So the contractors reach out to the growers and say, do you want to be a CalVans driver?
Farm labor contract.
Go down and get an agreement, everything's signed, and then we get them cleared with the Department of Labor. But our agreement's always with the driver. We don't know the contractor for liability purposes. should an accident occur.
Gotcha.
We know them. We send them a bill each month.
Pontiac Superior.
But we don't.
And then you said you're growing, and I just joined your board recently. That's how I got to know you. And you actually were retiring on my last meeting, and I asked if someone would do a presentation. You stepped right up, so
Oh, yeah.
thank you for that. Really appreciate it. You're very committed and done so much for this. You guys are growing. Your organization's growing. Where are you ordering your vans from?
We go out to bid. We go out, and Keller's got all but one bid over the last 8 years. They're so skinny on what they price it at. Selma almost made it 1 year, but then they forgot to include the trailer hitch and pulled their bid back again because they came in and says, Ron, please don't take our bid, get Keller's, because we did not include the trailer hitch package and we'd lose $175 per van. So, but we still send them out. We
That's
send
good.
out,
Selma has an opportunity.
yeah, we send out 26 bids to 26 different vendors from all over. And at this point, 2 years ago, the Bakersfield got the bid. Last year, they didn't get the bid again. And so we go through Keller's. We're getting hybrid vans now. So we're getting XL hybrid vans, which is generally a regular van with an XL hybrid kit underneath it that basically saves about 25% of the fuel it would otherwise use. So it's green, you might say.
And so the only requirement is you have to use it in a job-related way. You can't use it on the weekends.
Can't be in the weekends.
for
yeah.
recreation.
Liability-wise, you can't do that. So
Okay.
yeah, we're to and from work.
Did anybody else have any questions for Mr. Hughes and Cal Vans? I see more and more of your vehicles, and the program is definitely growing in numbers and success.
We're going to add about 300 vans over the next year. So yeah, we grow.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That was informational. With that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine. The complete consent calendar will be enacted by one motion of the council with one roll call vote. For purposes of discussion, any council member may have an item removed from the consent calendar and placed back on the regular agenda. The council will then vote on the remainder of the consent calendar items. Does anyone have an item or items they would like to pull off of tonight's consent calendar? I would like to pull off item G. Is there a motion to approve items 1A through F?
I'll make the motion
Is
to
there a
approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye. Okay, page 118, check number 72928, Rincon Consultants, Selma Rezone Assistance, 5/1 to 5/31, 542113. So my question on that is, these are the folks that are helping us get back in compliance with our housing element?
Yes, they are the consultants working on our housing element.
And is this going to be a monthly bill? Is this their monthly consulting bill, or is this actually a fee for service?
Fee for service.
Okay. And do we know if we're getting closer to achieving compliance with the rezone?
We actually had a meeting today internally to review properties and the ranking that they have done on that. So they have been making progress towards that. And we'll be coming to council in the future with an update on where that they are in that process.
Okay. And I assume we're staying in touch with the folks from the state on that? Ms. Huntley, Robin Huntley on that?
Yes, we are in touch with HCD.
Okay, great, thank you. Does anyone have any other items they'd like to question on the check register? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve item G. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Okay, no public hearing items tonight, so we'll move on to regular business. The first item being the presentation, discussion, and direction regarding district-based elections under the California Voting Rights Act. Report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As you know, back in the council directed us to work with National Demographics Corporation to work on presenting to council some information about whether or not to go to district elections and the concern and different aspects of that. So they are here today to give an initial workshop discussion with council on what's entailed in the California Voting Rights Act and the options that are available to you if you would like to proceed with district-based elections. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Douglas Johnson so he can go ahead and give a presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Before I jump into this, if I can make one comment on the census item, it was glad to hear them and glad to hear your interest. Cities are going to play a vital role in the census for a reason that'll be very clear. Think about when the census folks start going door to door, and front door is going to light up with all the front door messaging sites, and everyone's going to say, look, beware these. So cities are the ones with the front door access to post messages to all your groups. So the city's getting the word out that those folks actually are from the government and this isn't a fraud. Will be a vital role for cities in that process. So I was glad to hear them here, and I do encourage you to get more involved in that process because it is vital, as the mayor mentioned. So sorry for the little tangent, but let me jump into this. I'm actually giving a lot of talks on that at the same time.
Tour related.
Yeah, yeah. Since that's where all our data comes from. So let me see here. Page down. Oh, this was working earlier, but it's not now. So why don't you just hit next slide. So as folks have probably heard, because this has been sweeping across the whole state, California passed the California Voting Rights Act. And what it does is it's modeled on the Federal Voting Rights Act, but the federal law has 4 tests listed in the middle there. And before you're in violation of federal law, you have to fail all 4. And what the California law did is it took out 2 of those tests. So instead of failing all 4 before you're in violation, now you just have to fail the 2 that are really a statistical regression study. So there's no longer a need for a large geographically concentrated group of the protected class who are not represented. And there's no longer a need to show that race is a factor either covertly or overtly in elections. Now it's simply a statistical test, and there's no need to show any discrimination or prejudice or anything like that. It's just pure math, looking at your numbers. And if the math doesn't work out, then you're in violation of the law. Let's go to the next slide. So now that it's so much easier for plaintiffs, we've seen this just sweeping the state. And so now, by our count, we're now at 202 school districts that have switched, about 34 community college districts, 120 cities have made the change. And just to put this in context, before this law, there were 29 cities that had district elections. So we've gone from 29 to 149 in the space of about 8 years, really. Most of the cities have been fairly recent switches. One county board of supervisors, there was only one county left that wasn't by district, so they were forced to switch, and now all the counties are by district. And now we're seeing more and more activity in water districts, sewer districts, hospital districts, airport districts. We're actually working with the healthcare district here on making the transition as well. And this isn't driven because 400 jurisdictions are violating anyone's voting rights or violating anyone's civil rights. It's driven by the cost of the litigation that has been brought, and a few jurisdictions actually went to court. So as you may have heard, Santa Clara and Santa Monica are in court, and they both lost in Superior Court and are appealing those rulings. Palmdale also lost, and the fees that have been paid by the cases that are done, I mentioned on the right, or by legal settlements, Palmdale ended up paying the plaintiffs $4.7 million. Santa Clara, it's on appeal, so they haven't written a check yet, but they've been ordered to pay $3.16 million. Modesto had to pay $3 million. And this is in addition to their own defense counsel. So that's what's driving this wave of change is the financial exposure under this law. Okay, go ahead to the next one. So if the council decides to move to district elections, the process to get in place before the 2020 elections would be first, under state law, you have to hold 2 initial hearings. And this is before there's any draft maps. So these are really just informational, educational, and looking to gather resident input on what are your neighborhoods, the building blocks that the district should be based on. After those first 2 hearings, then we release draft maps. Those are put out for 7 days before the 3rd and 4th hearings, which are held to actually discuss the details of the draft maps, talk about changes to them, kind of the usual things you'd expect to talk about in districts, looking at the maps and how they might be revised. And then the final map, incorporating whatever revisions are made, needs to be posted 7 days prior to adoption. And the catch is that all this has to be done within 90 days. So it's a fairly fast process. We have 90 days, and we have those 2 7-day windows baked in there as well. So the timeline is pretty fast, but it is 5 hearings altogether, the 5th one being the adoption hearing. And we're in a little bit of a weird time frame. We're working with, as I mentioned, the healthcare district and about 20 other jurisdictions that are going through this. And we're going through it currently knowing the map that's adopted will be used for the 2020 election, and then it'll be redrawn immediately. So the 2020 census comes out, the data is released in early 2021. So the map drawn now is used for the 2020 election. Then in 2021, the map would have to be updated, and all the jurisdictions that have district elections will update their map in 2021. That map, as revised then, will be used for the entire decade. So you don't have to do it every 2 years. It's just a weird situation we're in now, where you'd have to redraw it right away. So so half the districts would hold election in 2020, then the map would be updated, and the other half of the districts would hold their first elections in the updated map. Go ahead, next slide. So the rules and goals for how the maps are drawn. On the left are the requirements. Federal law dictates that we must have an equal population in each district, and that is based on the most recent census data. So in this case, we'd be using actually 2010 census data on total population. And it's not registered voters, it's not eligible voters, it is an equal number of human beings counted in the census regardless of age or anything else. So we'd have equal number of people in each of the districts using those now somewhat old census data. Then we have to follow the Federal Voting Rights Act, which really means if there is a protected class, as the law calls it, which means Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, or Native Americans. If there is a community or a neighborhood that's heavily one of those groups, we can't divide them in a way that dilutes their voting strength. But at the same time, no racial gerrymandering. It's a little bit of a balancing act. So race can be a factor, but it cannot be the predominant factor in where the lines go. And those are the laws that govern how the lines are drawn. Outside of that are our goals. So on the right is what we call traditional redistricting principles. These are goals, they're not requirements. And it's impossible to perfectly address all of them. So eventually the map that you choose is the map that best balances these goals. So we're looking at communities of interest, which I'll talk a bit more about in a moment. We're trying to be compact and contiguous and follow major roads and other visible features. Those three are really so it's easy for the voters to understand where the lines are. When they want to go out and knock on doors for candidates they like, we want it to be easy to know which doors to knock on. It's a lot easier if it's one major road and another than if it winds and curves through neighborhoods. But of course, the equal population requirement plays havoc with that for us because it does make us move those lines in many places. Then respect for the voters' choices, or continuity in office as the courts refer to it. The courts have signed off on this many times of trying to ensure that council members aren't in the same seat. And the reason for this is actually to respect the voters. It's to let the voters decide which council members have earned re-election. If two council members end up in the same seat, well then it doesn't matter if the voters think both have earned re-election. Only one's going to get re-elected because of where the lines go. So that's something the courts have said you can look at. Again, it's a goal, it's not a requirement. And then we mentioned planned future growth. Obviously, between now and the 2020 election, not a lot will change. So we're not really looking at that this round, but we don't want it to be a surprise in 2021 when you can take that much more into consideration, because that map will be in place for 10 years. The next slide. So I'm not going to go through all this data. There's a ton of demographic data, most of it from the Census Bureau, that goes into this. And the total population number in the top left, that's what drives the total number of people per district.
That was 9 years
And then
ago.
all the other data can be used for kind of identifying socioeconomic definitions of communities of interest. So you've got percentage of residents who are immigrants, percentage of the immigrants who are naturalized, percentage of folks who are speak English less than very well. Essentially, the census has two odd categories in the database we get this from. You can either speak English very well or less than very well. And so that's the two categories, so we don't have a not at all category. Children and households, household income. One that comes up a lot is renters versus owner-occupied housing. So all this data is released for every district and every draft map. So if folks are interested in looking at, does this map have a renter majority seat? Well, that data is all there in every map, so people can look at it. Let's do the next slide. I mentioned the Federal Voting Rights Act. This is a map showing the estimates of Latino eligible voters in each census block, which is really each city block. The red is 75% or more of the eligible voters are Latino. Yellow is 65 to 75, and the light green is 50 to 65%. As you can see, just about the whole city is overwhelmingly Latino. No surprise to folks that live here, I'm sure. There are a couple of census blocks really along the freeway that are purple and light blue. Most of those have very few people in them, just a couple of people. So we don't really get neighborhoods that are not majority Latino. Normally, when you get a federal Voting Rights Act challenge, there's one neighborhood that's red, and the goal is to bring empowerment to that area. So you're not a classic voting rights situation. This is not a city that has a underrepresented protected class that is suffering or lacking representation anyway. And the other piece of this is there's really no way to draw a district that isn't majority Latino in the city. If you go to the next one. So really, when we're talking about the Federal Voting Rights Act, we're not really worried about it. Every district is going to be majority Latino. So what it really comes down to is communities of interest. And number one, what is a community of interest? Well, it's a neighborhood. However the people in that neighborhood define their area. It can be between a couple major streets. It can be an area around a park. It could be a school attendance zone. Whatever people use to define their neighborhoods, that's what we're looking for. And that's what those first two hearings are really looking to gain from the community. But there's a second question that's usually forgotten, which is, okay, this is your neighborhood, this is your community of interest, but do you want it to be consolidated or united in one seat, which maximizes your voting strength to elect the one person from that seat? Or do you actually want to be divided? In which way, in which sense you have less say in the election of one person, but you have two council members or even three who have to come to your neighborhood and campaign and answer to the voters from that area. So it does bring multiple representatives, and I have some real-world examples of different ways of answering that question. So the next slide. These are two City of Compton on the left and Glendale Unified on the right, two traditional districting projects. Both, they went for, yes, let's try to unite each community of interest. So on the left, Compton, they went really for 4 quadrants. You can see how equal population kind of plays havoc with that. It's not really 4 quadrants, but it's as close as we could get. And the weird white areas are, the city has a weird border. But that's what they were going for there. You can see 4 distinct quadrants. On the right-hand side, Glendale Unified, very unite each community. You've got a north seat, a west seat, and so on. Very traditional maps. Can we go to the next slide? These are 3 jurisdictions that went the other way. It said, okay, here's our communities of interest. We want each community of interest or specific ones to have multiple representatives. So Pasadena in the top left, if you've ever heard of Old Town Pasadena, phenomenal redevelopment project. It's probably the most successful. I live in the next town over, and we all refer to Old Town as, no one goes there anymore. It's way too crowded. It's the classic situation of it's just huge success. Part of the reason for that success is that even though they're in districts, all 7 districts touch Old Town. And so each council member feels responsibility for that, in part because they went to districts back when they were planning it. So downtown Pasadena was still an area you didn't really go after dark back then. But they knew they were working on this. They wanted each council member involved. So you got some funny looking lines in order to make sure that each district touched Colorado Boulevard. South Pasadena at the bottom, tiny little 1 square mile South Pasadena was forced to go to district elections. And they wanted to keep kind of an at-large feel. So you can see the 3 districts going from the north end to the south end. Each of those districts touches every neighborhood. And then Central Unified up by Fresno. They wanted to blend, when they went to districts, they wanted a blend of rural and urban. And really they wanted 3 board members to represent the parents from every school or the kids from every school, so that a majority of the board still felt responsibility. So you get these funny looking lines as they stretch out of Fresno and out in the rural areas. The map is classic. It achieved its goal. They went from, I think, 1 Latino on the board to 4 under this map. But at the same time, all of the board members felt responsibility to both rural and urban areas. And it's a very funny looking map. But you get that as, if that's your answer to the second question, is to have multiple representatives of each community. So that's what we'll be looking for in those first couple of hearings. And then we draw options that did both approaches, so that the community could react and give their thoughts on which was best for Selma. So going through this fairly briefly, happy to answer any questions, but essentially under the California Voting Rights Act, are you one of these jurisdictions that just jumps off the map and yes, you've got a problem, you need to switch? No, not at all. Obviously, you have a very, your council really reflects the demographics of the district. But at the same time, the only safe harbor that the law offers is to go to district elections. As I mentioned, you'd have to really gerrymander lines and to have even one district that wasn't majority Latino, so we're not looking at really a federal Voting Rights Act problem, and the demographics won't dictate a lot of where the lines go. But at the same time, they were feeling fairly good about the current council. No city has ever won a challenge under the California Voting Rights Act, so we don't really know where the threshold is, unfortunately. We can't tell you you're safe because you met this threshold that the court set up. It's a very vague law, unfortunately. And lastly, as you've seen from the numbers I showed you in some of the surrounding jurisdictions, these cases are very expensive. If you don't stay in that safe harbor, you get in millions of dollars right away. And then there is a cost, obviously, for going through this process, but a little bit of that cost is recaptured every time. If you have district elections, well, then your election's a little bit less expensive because only 2 or 3 districts will be up. So your elections have fewer voters participating that time, which reduces your costs. So it in the end, if you go to 5 seats, it's kind of a wash with the expenses. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions now or after public comment, whatever's useful to you.
You have any questions? Anybody from the public have any questions about going to districting? Can you take a microphone or come up?
Teresa Salas. How is it divided if you have a majority of the council people that all live in the same area?
So certainly a common question. We would have different maps. There's no legal requirement about ignoring or taking into consideration where council members live. But it certainly is one of the traditional principles to try to avoid pairing council members. So we can draw maps that attempt to separate the council members and put those up as proposals, and certainly would offer those as some of the options.
Anybody else have any questions?
Oh, yes, come up to the mic.
So if they're divided, you make the map and you still have 3 councilmen or 2 councilmen in the same area, how does that affect the election then, or what happens to those 2?
Yeah, so if we do end up with a map that has council members together, we try to put council members together if we have to who are in the same election year. So at least then they can both run, even if the voters then can't choose to reelect both. If council members end up in the same seat who are in different election years, it gets very complicated very fast. If the seat is assigned to the second year, so to 2022, well then it doesn't matter what the voters think, the 2020 council member is out. 2020 will come up, and that person, unless they move, they leave the council. They have no option to run. Vice versa, if it's put to 2020, then the 2022 council member either can finish their remaining 2 years of the term and then be out with no option to run, no opportunity for the voters to weigh in, or the 2022 council member can run mid-term for the seat in 2020 against the 2020 council member. If they win, they resign their 2022 seat and are sworn into the district seat. If they lose, they actually stay on the council for 2 more years. It gets very complicated and messy, which is another reason, in addition to letting the voters make these decisions, that kind of mess is another reason we try to avoid.
And there's significant voter input in the process of the districting.
Exactly.
In terms of the workshops in terms of the meetings that we have, definitely open sessions for the public for input into the way those districts look and the composition of those districts.
Yes, exactly. By state law, we have to have 5 hearings, and we try to offer a range of options in our draft maps. And then, of course, that's just to start the conversation, and the community input and the council input then drives all kinds of revisions if you wish to see those.
Step up.
Are you able to give a case scenario regarding an undercount on the census and how it will affect losing seats in redistricting, as what happened in 2010? We had an undercount, therefore there was a change in electoral seats, plus a case scenario, if we have an undercount in 2020, how that will affect the redistricting and the possibility of losing seats, and also how it affects school districts?
Sure. So, in terms of the city council, we just work with the census data we get, and there will be 5 seats. So it's not like Congress where you actually lose a seat based on the census. Although wearing a different hat as a researcher at the Rose Institute, I have a report on California, the undercount and congressional appropriation. But in terms of the council, all it would impact is where the lines are drawn within the city. You would still have the same number of council districts. It just, if there was one neighborhood that's undercounted more than another, well, then that neighborhood would end up in a larger district, and those folks would be essentially diluted a little bit. But at the city level, it doesn't really play in. Where it does kick in is, of course, in congressional elections, and then in in particular where your state senate lines go with 1 million people per state senate district.
And so your fee to do the initial districting on what we're embarking on is, how much did you say, Doug, from the total?
It's
If
in
we-
the proposal we sent. I think it's about, I don't remember if it's about 17 or 20,000 base, and then for each meeting that we attend, there's a charge per meeting.
So maybe a total of
It's
round
20
about 30.
Yeah.
And
somewhere
then
around there.
when the census happens and we have to do it all over, do we start from scratch with you folks to help us do the redistricting, or is it a little less expensive to do the second phase?
Well, it's a smaller project. Well, number one, for those jurisdictions that really get lucky, the first thing you do is you check the existing districts. And if they just happen to still be population balanced, then you don't have to do anything, and you're off the hook for like $1,000 kind of thing. That is going to be maybe 1%, 2% of jurisdictions. It's very unlikely. Yeah. The trick on the pricing for 2021 is that, yes, it is a smaller scale project. It's not subject to this crazy 90-day statute. You have more time and more flexibility. The challenge is that we as a company will be trying to manage about 300 projects at once. And so it does end up, we haven't done pricing yet, but it will probably be about the same price. Even though it's less work, it's just because we'll be so stretched and managing all that.
So tonight we're not deciding on the actual districting, whether we want to do 4 districts and a mayor at large, whether we want to do 5 districts. We're not going into details. We're just deciding tonight whether or not to move forward to a resolution, whether to enter the districting process. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. So we'd like consensus from council on whether or not you want to move forward with district-based elections, and if so, then we need to come back and bring a resolution to you at the next meeting to start that 90-day window, and then within that time frame, as Mr. Johnson pointed out, have the public hearings, and then bring back maps after that. The next phase is we'd be going to level 3, which was $17,500, and then $2,000 for any meetings that Mr. Douglas attends.
Excuse me, but you said that that's correct, but isn't it so that if we are going to entertain having a mayor at large, there would be no sense in having and retaining him because we wouldn't be under the law protected? Isn't that correct?
Right. If
So then what's the
we
sense?
don't go to all 5 districts, there is some concern about that.
Some
legally.
concern or well, this is not concern, it's an actual reality. We're not meeting up to par, aren't we?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, is it okay if I address Councilmember Trujillo's comment?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 issues. One is whether if we decide to move forward with districts, we need to somehow draw those lines. And so we still need the assistance of a demographer to make sure that those districts that we've drawn comply with federal law and the goals set under state law. If in fact the council does choose to move forward with 4 council districts and 1 mayor at large, Councilmember Trujillo is correct that we are not protected under the Voting Rights Act because we wouldn't have completely districted elections. We would have a combination of at-large and districts. And so we would still be open to a letter that would trigger another 90 days to move forward with going to 5 districts. And then we would be responsible for attorney's fees up to $30,000.
So are we actually deciding that tonight, though, whether we're going to do 4 or 5 districts? Or are we just deciding whether we're going to draw up a resolution to actually district?
This evening,
Because the voters should have the input in terms of how they want the districts drawn. They're gonna have some input on that, whether they wanna do that, and there might even be an issue where the voters could vote down the line whether or not they wanna elect
But yeah, but that's
their
but
own
tha-
mayor.
that's my main concern. The question is, are we going to do a consensus where it'll actually cost the city from the general fund monies to retain him, where in fact we're gonna be back at square root one, we're not protecting the city, so why even do that?
Well, have the cities that have gone to districting and mayor at large, have any of them lost a challenge
So
in terms of the voting, the CVRA?
that I know of, 3 cities have been sued over this question, and in all 3 cases, there was no appeals court ruling, so we don't have any binding ruling. And the Superior Court judges all said, "We'll let it go for now, but we'll wait and see what happens." so it's an open question.
So
there are numbers
it's
that
no,
have
they
gone.
haven't been, so
Sued.
the answer is no.
No.
They haven't, there have been no legal sanctions as a result
Mis-
of going to 4 districts and a mayor at large, or depending on how many council members they had, maybe 6 districts and a mayor at large.
Mr.
depending on
Mayor, if
how
I can
large the
just,
city is.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just clarify a little bit of that. The issue here is that in those instances, the cities were actually sued and they fought the challenge. And so they had to pay for their attorney's fees to go through that lawsuit. I think what Councilmember Trujillo is pointing out, that we wouldn't even get to that point if we went forward with 5 districts, because there would be no issue as to whether or not we were complying with the CVRA, and so we wouldn't be faced with a legal challenge. Those actually went to court, the city had to litigate it, spend attorney's fees, and in the end, they were able to keep their districts the way they had drawn them in the mayor at large, but they did need to expend what is likely general fund money to be able to move forward with those legal actions.
So that's something that we need to achieve consensus on now, whether we're gonna go with 5 districts, or whether we're gonna go with 4 districts and mayor at large, or whether we're
Mis-
going to make that open.
Mr.
To
Mayor,
a
that was my request to the city manager is, I think that, I just wanna make a strong point, is that if we are deliberating and wanting to go with a strong mayorship and 4 council members, then in reality right now, we don't need to retain him. Or we do. We would still have to draw the lines.
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. If we needed,
So we're
if we
still
were
gonna-
moving forward with drawing any districts, we do need to retain a demographer.
Or we roll the dice because we gotta pay the 30,000 again after the census, even if we do the 5 districts. And so we pay 30 now, then we gotta pay 30 again in a year and a half when they do the census.
We're back at again.
So do we do it now and ensure that we're not going to get sued for that 30,000, or do we wait until after the census and pay the 30 then, and risk that letter, which is at least a $30,000 letter, between not doing it and when we do it in the census? Oh, and we could actually end up paying 90,000, right? Because if they sue us within like 15 days or 20 days before the census is done, then it's 30 to get out of it, or 30 to say we're gonna district, 30 to district now, and then another 30 in a year to comply with the
So you're about
districting.
almost
So
100,000, man.
so that's 100,000 there. So I don't know if we have a choice but to do this now.
We're gonna do it next
But
year.
are we
We're gonna do it
deciding
now
that-
or later.
To answer the question, do we have to decide now with how the 5 districts or
No.
the 4?
Mr. Mayor, members
We're
of the
just
council, at
deciding
this
to
point, it's not
do a
necessary to
resolution.
decide
the
the number
public.
of districts. We're
Let
just
the public-
asking if the council wants to move forward with entertaining a resolution to move forward with the districting process.
Yeah, the
It's
public's
just a
gonna have to.
resolution moving to the district.
The
that's all
public
it
should
is.
decide whether they wanna elect their own mayor, in my opinion, and be apprised of the risks of doing that.
Well, yeah,
But I mean,
because-
with this,
Yeah, you gotta
If
let
we-
the public know the
At-
risk
at-
behind
at
it.
this Exactly, it's their
if-
choice ultimately.
Could we is this time where you question term limits as well? Do we want term limits, ask the public that, or if we're doing mayor at large? do we-
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, term limits are something that's decided on a ballot. It needs to be put before the voters. It can be done in two different ways. One is that the city council can adopt an ordinance and put it on the ballot itself, or it can go through the citizen initiative process where citizens would gather 10% of the votes, or 10% of the signatures of registered voters and put it on the ballot themselves. But it's not something that the council can do without a vote of the people.
Okay, and district we could do without the vote.
That's correct.
I think right now, what the city manager's asking is a consensus that we want to move forward with the actual beginning, the second stage of this. And then, once they come back and they'll go to the step where they'll have their public hearings, correct?
That's correct. Thank you, Councilmember. And once, if council does want to move forward with it and we bring back a resolution, once the resolution is adopted, that does start the 90-day process. So that is the commitment to go to districting.
And that's where the $17,000 come into play.
Yes, 17,500 plus 2,000 for any meetings that
That's
Mr.
already
Douglas
30
attends.
that's already 30%
And,
of the money.
Yeah, it's
and
most
that's
of the way through.
within the authority you gave us when we started his contract.
And
So,
It's like
and we can
64.
use some of that information if you decided to do the other redistricting.
You mean the 4 or 5?
Mayorship,
Okay. So, how much have we spent already?
4,250.
Okay, 4250 of the budget, and we have it in the budget for 2019-20 to spend up to that $64,000 number. Just kind of a hypothetical question. If you you start the 90-day and then you stop it, do you only get one 90-day? Or can you,
Or can
can
we
you,
extend it?
What if we don't
could you
start?
keep going
Reverts?
through the
What if we
90
don't
days?
Once you get the letter?
You can go, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you can go through this process as many times as you'd like. The issue is that you need to complete it within the 90 days if you're going to start it to insulate yourself from any litigation. Or not litigation, from a letter that would trigger the $30,000 in attorney's fees.
And once we say we're gonna we're gonna start it at 17.5.
So the
Right
clock
there, is that
starts.
right? The money's
Plus-
pretty much gone,
So the clock
Plus
starts.
the-
plus the 4 that we've
the-
already spent.
Plus the money for the hearings.
On the
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah, resolution will start, the clock will start.
Yeah.
So you
yeah,
just can't keep going through a loop of 90 days to make it past the census time.
Yeah, just from experience,
We're just trying to
Good
get
try.
creative.
Just,
One-
just a hypothetical.
Good
yeah,
try.
once
Good
you
try.
start the process, the plaintiff's attorneys will start watching.
Watching.
If they aren't
Okay,
already.
so you get
And
one
we did
shot.
have a jurisdiction that they put the intent resolution on the agenda and then voted it down. And then realized their mistake and brought it back a month later. When the agenda came out for the meeting a month later, their initial 45 days to react to the letter was done. And so the plaintiff's attorneys saw the agenda and sued them on Friday with the meeting scheduled for Tuesday. So once you start the train rolling, it
When do
is
we wanna do
extremely
this?
risky
We
to
wanna
stop
do
the
it
train
in August?
Okay.
from stopping.
It'd have to.
Finish.
So how soon could this resolution be prepared to get us, I'm assuming the next vote, if we vote the resolution in, we're safe, we enter the 90-day period.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if the resolution is adopted, that would begin our 90-day period and we would be insulated from any $30,000 letter.
And how long will it take for this resolution to be prepared?
I believe we can have it on the next agenda unless Mr. Johnson thinks otherwise.
No, there's lots of templates to use here.
Okay, so with that, we'll refer it back to council. Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
I'll second it.
Yep.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Mayor, if we could have the language of the motion.
Oh,
Would it be to move, would it be to move
draft the
staff's
resolution.
recommendation? Thank you.
is-
And the
do you have
maker of the
the-
motion is
Yeah.
comfortable with that? And the seconder of the motion is comfortable with that as well?
So there was a motion to
Move
draft a
staff's
resolution to
Move staff's recommendation.
to move
Yes.
staff's recommendation to vote on the resolution as soon as
Correct.
possible. Okay,
Okay.
call the roll,
Yes.
please.
No, I
He
made a
was,
motion.
and then Franco was second.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco,
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Mayor Robertson.
Aye. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you. Consideration of a resolution approving a certified list of all parcels subject to a special tax levy pursuant to the City of Selma Community Facilities District number 2006-1. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, the items you have in front of you is our annual filing to the tax roll, to the TEETR program at the county for our CFD, Community Facilities District for Vineyard States. Just kind of give you a little bit of the history on this item. This was established way back in 2006. It actually didn't start generating some kind of tax itself until the actual building permits were issued. So you will see this number grow over a period of time and the revenue stream that's actually generated from it. The funds can only be utilized for police, fire, and paramedic services, park services, and storm drain services. At this time, for the filing of the tax year of 1920, we would be filing the amounts for 55 total units. Like, just to kind of backtrack again, the total build out is projected at about 154. So a total revenue, when it is totally built out as far as the tax, you're looking around 89,000 to 90,000. And then each year this amount will change and will continue to grow as permits are issued. In addition to that, there is an annual CPI that comes into play. So the tax year of 1920, which you're looking at, or should I say fiscal year, I'm sorry, for a single family home, each unit would generate about $578.32. If there was a multifamily component, each unit would be about 434.48. At this time, there is no multifamily plan for that development, so you can understand what that information projects to. So the total amount collected for that fiscal year will be $36,632.30. Is there any questions?
Anybody have any questions? So, go ahead, Councilperson.
Isaac, I have a question. This pertains to the Vineyard Estate project. Now, is this going to pertain to all projects?
When this was done, it was only for that development itself. There has been conversations for making a CFD that is citywide. There has been no development since that time besides that project. It's all been basically infill and things of that nature. So once the development like an Amberwood or some other development comes in, we'll start having that conversation again here shortly, most likely, to see what the council's approval is to make a citywide CFD. Something similar. So there's different tools that you can use this for. You could use it for safety. You could use it for street maintenance. You could use it for a lot of different things. So it's really having a consensus on how we want to direct this and what we'd like to do. But it is a common tool now that cities utilize.
Okay.
Could we make this to include downtown as well, like a zone of benefit as well? This is like a zone of benefit, right? Community Facilities District. Could this be used for downtown as well?
I think for downtown, maybe a business improvement district or a district like that, a little bit different, but the same idea that you define an area and a purpose for that.
This is home driven. That would be more of a business item. That's why it's
because this
different.
looks like impact and development. This is what impact and development fees are, but you only get those. You get one shot. This one you get every year. Is that correct?
That's
for
correct.
The homes
You
at
file it
Vineyard
each year.
Estates? And it appears on the homeowner's property tax rolls every year.
That's correct.
Okay.
This is probably something we could use for the infrastructure for our sewer plant, our sewer infrastructure, correct?
You can define what you want to
You
utilize
could
the
use it.
service for. Again, like this one has storm drain on it, so you can define that
So like a zone of benefit.
how it's distributed or utilized.
So you could turn this for every single family subdivision that goes in, single family home or condo, triplex or duplex. You could use a CFD in order to fund, say that if the city wanted to put the sewer lines in.
Typically, a CFD, the Community Facilities District, is going to be for things like ongoing maintenance.
Correct.
But the initial impact to put something in is more of an impact fee traditionally.
Correct.
So what's the difference between LLMD and a CFD?
So an LMD is really just maintenance and upkeep. Overall, you're taking care of what's a pocket park or some kind of lighting within the district itself. A CFD is really you're paying into the structure for utilizing services. So maybe they can expand services or continue services or maintain services. So it's a little more broad in that sense.
Question we just said.
Will this actually deter developers from coming in if they're is there an LLMD out of Vineyard as
That's
well?
part of the conversations that you'll have.
Taxing them to death out there.
Where it is a question about development and how that structure is. I will say again, it's becoming part of the norm. So developers are used to seeing the CFDs and things of that structure. So, but it is part of the conversation that you have.
Have we had any response from the developers on this?
Can we the city manager stated something in regards to what's the existing and what's the impact. Could we actually produce the need of the actual infrastructure for the whole entire city and impose some kind of fee or something in regards to any new development or existing remodified or rebuilt, rehabbed? Could we?
Well, let's think about
'Cause-
the CFD and the structure in itself. So you have at one time entertained a CFD structure or zone for the North Sewer project. So that's very feasible to be able to set that zone, that boundary, create that tax within that CFD, and fund the infrastructure. So that is very feasible. You can do that. Bringing in the whole city to do that, I don't think that's something you would do
Making the whole city a CFD.
for a sewer line somewhere.
There's so
to
many
that
different
extent.
diverse needs.
Correct. So if you had a CFD, it'd really come into, again, back to new developments, new households. They'd be paying into something a little more broad in this sense, where you're paying for safety, you're paying for maintenance itself, and things of that nature.
I would just hate to discourage sales out there if people think, gosh, I've got a landscape and lighting maintenance district fee, and then I've got this community facilities district fee, and why aren't they getting charged
Impact
that at
fee.
the Raven subdivision, that's something like that, so I don't want it to actually discourage business.
And to that point, I would mention that there is a study that goes into any CFD and what goes in it, so that there's a limitation of how much you can put onto a household or a lot. So there is a maximum that you can have, and that all gets studied very carefully, and we consider and discuss with the developers, is that still going to make your product marketable? And typically are always looking for a way to do that. I will back up a little bit on CFDs being for something more than maintenance. And where I've seen that is when there are multiple property owners that are involved in a development, and they are looking for a way to share the costs of infrastructure. So I said earlier that it's largely maintenance. However, there are some special exceptions where a CFD among property owners to put the initial infrastructure in might also be a way that that tool is used. So there are different ways that we can use it. And as far as infrastructure, the city looks at impact fees for things like traffic signalizations, future street improvements or development that we want to do, and all those things are assessed on I don't know if we do it every 10 years, every 5 years, an impact fee study. So I think that was one of your questions, Councilmember
Yeah,
Trujillo. I
I-
hope I answered yours as well, Mayor.
And
Mr. Mayor, and piggybacking off what you were saying in regards to the Raven development, I think in regards to what the impact will be to any residential or commercial coming into the city of Selma, I think it behooves us, the city council, to take charge on the trunk line and things like that, and turn it on, and being consistent with our finance director, and for the future, looking at what it would take for us to become more consistent to bring businesses to this community. I think that's a bigger.
Would
better-
the liability for that fall on I know we're off topic a little bit, but I think the councilman brings up a point in terms of infrastructure. Who initiates it? Is it just a zone of improvement and a reimbursement plan, or is it something the city just puts in and then recaptures through something like a community facilities district?
So, Mr. Mayor, if I can answer a couple of questions or just make some clarifications so that we all have an understanding of the difference between a CFD, an impact fee, an LLMD, and then what for some reason is called zone of benefits, but those are actually only applicable to the county. So I think that maybe there's just been a misnomer here in the city. But to address zone of benefits first, under the Subdivision Map Act, there's a required fee sharing that goes on when there's a subdivision. So for instance, if there's a subdivision that has to put in a sewer line, and at some point in time that sewer line is going to benefit a number of other parcels in the future, under the Subdivision Map Act, the city is required to enter into a reimbursement agreement with that developer, and that's how the developer provides the funding for that infrastructure. And then as other subdivisions or other entities move in and take advantage of that infrastructure, then those developers reimburse the city, and then we reimburse the developer. So that's how something that the city's called zone of benefit, that's how it actually
So
works
what's
under
the
Subdivision
security
Map
for
Act.
that? So take it a step further then, city attorney, and let me know what is, in the real world, what is the security that the developer is gonna be repaid that? Because I know there's a developer out there that is very concerned about that.
We have to
potential.
enter into a reimbursement agreement, and so it's a contractual obligation of the city.
Mhm.
Those are,
And those are mandated under the Subdivision Map Act.
Mhm.
And we have provisions in it in our code.
So then he'll get it.
And
So
then,
what backs that up if the city finds some detail in the contract that it doesn't pay? Is there anything backing that up? Any collateralization, or I think we've been hearing about? Is there anything to further back that up other than the paper itself? the
I'd have
agreement
to
itself?
look at that further, because it's been a while since I've done a reimbursement agreement, so I just need to look and see what exactly is there. Generally though, just off the top, I would think it'd be a breach of contract action though.
Mhm. So is there, what if the developer is worried about that and would want some sort of backing on that in terms of, say, the impact or the development fees? Can the city
I think
put
that
something up?
We have to be
to guarantee
we have to
that?
comply with the Subdivision Map Act,
Mhm.
so it would be whatever the Subdivision Map Act allows us to do is what we would have to comply with.
could we,
Because it is a
'Cause there were
part
some
of the
defaults
Subdivision
in 2006
Map
and
Act that
7,
allows
right?
for it.
you stated that the subdivision or the developer would do this. Could we flip it and the city do it and have a same agreement with the developer in regards to getting paid back?
Off the cuff, I would say no, because that's not what our code allows, and that's traditionally not how subdivisions are created. Because the Subdivision Map Act governs the process for creating a subdivision, and we are required to comply with the Subdivision Map Act, I would say we likely have to comply with a reimbursement agreement. But again, working in hypotheticals is sometimes difficult, so we'd have to examine it on a case-by-case basis.
What I mean by that is the city of Selma introduced and purchased the trunk line and then let the developers hook up and we charge them for the hookup.
And so that's usually something different. That's where sewer impact fees usually come in. It's not the city generally building an entire, mile or two of sewer lines.
Because
That generally doesn't occur, but
because the-
again, on a case-by-case basis, and I think we're getting
It's
a
in a
little bit
right
off.
of way.
biggest
It's
the
on
biggest
their- on their
discussion the
land.
biggest discussion is what every developer states is, well, what so and so is going to connect and so and so is going to connect.
How am I gonna get
Right.
paid?
And right now with SKF we're in limbo. So
And then SKF, right, then you add that because we don't
Yeah,
have
that's
our
a
own sewer
fiasco
system.
itself.
And
Right,
Mr.
ownership
We need to build
issues
it.
are part
And
of that
Mr.
as
Mayor, if
well.
I can just address the CFD issue, I want to make it clear that CFDs aren't something that the city imposes. That's something that the developer requests. We have to adopt an ordinance because state law requires us to in order to be able to put it on the tax rolls. But it's not something we do unilaterally. The developer requests it. There has to be a vote of the property owners. Usually it's just the developer that's voting because he or she is the only property owner. There is a protest procedure. Everyone who owns the property, which again is generally just the developer, receives notice of the fact that the CFD is being proposed. When each of those parcels is sold, as part of the purchase and sale documents, our ordinance should state that everyone is required to be notified at the time of sale that this property is subject to a CFD. So the city is not in any way unilaterally imposing this. It's something that the developer has requested.
So you're saying that the developer in this case requested the
That's correct.
CFD? Okay, and in a way, this takes the developer off the hook of some of these costs. So it can be a cost-saving mechanism for the developer. Just shift some of these costs back to
the resident.
homeowner.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, Isaac.
No, it's fine. Just to kind of bridge onto that too, there has been a studies done currently that show that there is a direct impact on general services from residential components. Their property taxes really don't make up that difference of their impact. So that's a good tool of why CFDs were actually created in this format.
And the Park Service in this case of Vineyard Estates, is that Ringo Park we're talking about, or what park are we talking about?
It's parks as a whole.
Oh,
It
okay.
could benefit any park within the
Some
city.
of that could even
It
go
doesn't
towards
have to go
the
back
new
to that
park in
development.
Rockwell.
It's citywide. That's correct.
Okay.
So anything that's then identified as a park itself.
And that would go into a fund, and we would see it in the city financial, saying this is a restricted fund as part of the Vineyard Estates CFD.
That's correct.
And you would have a CFD based on each area that you designate as a CFD.
Well, it depends on how you structure the CFD. For this one, you'd have its own general fund. If you had a citywide one, they'd be paying into the same fund. So it depends on how you structure the CFDs.
And then as you spend it, it has to be spent, and that you have to show that it's
It has to be
being
in
spent one of
accordance with
one of
with these
areas.
guidelines, correct?
And
So
it's
it's similar
always
to an impact fee in that sense, where it has to be structured, it has to be adopted. You can only utilize it for how you actually approved it. it's got those similar formats.
Okay. And there's no sunset on this?
No.
It just keeps going, keeps rolling.
Right.
And this is the only CFD we have in Selma?
That's correct.
Okay. And are you aware of any protests that you've heard from the, not the developer because he's
The
the one who came
homeowners?
up with it, but the homeowners?
Usually they don't even know it's there, to be honest.
Okay.
They're supposed to get the information from escrow. Usually I do get a call about their property tax, what's this amount? I explain them to it, I explain the amount, and it's gone from there.
Do we know if they have an LLMD there? Vineyard
They
Estates
do
there?
have an established LMD. They go to the tax roll as well. That's for the lighting, landscaping, and districts and stuff like that. So it is part of their development to have one.
Okay. All right. That will bring it back to the council. Is there a motion
I make a motion.
to accept? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye. That
Thank
will
you.
move on to, thank you, ACM. That will move on to item 4, consideration of ordinance number 2019-3, amending the city's municipal code regarding the composition of the personnel and planning commissions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you are all aware, our Personnel Commission consists of 5 members, and its primary purpose is to meet to hear disciplinary appeals from our employees. We currently have a full commission, but historically we have had difficulty maintaining that full commission and at times having a quorum. And when an employee requests a personnel appeal, we are required by our personnel rules and regulations to meet within a certain deadline. So to assure that we would be able to meet within that deadline and have a quorum at least, the ordinance was amended in 2009, allowing the personnel chair to pull 2 ad hoc members from the Planning Commission and from this Traffic and Streets Commission. And those ad hoc members were to be the chair of the Planning Commission and the Traffic and Streets Commission. However, we no longer have a Traffic and Streets Commission, and the current chair of the Planning Commission is currently a Personnel Commissioner. And so in reviewing the ordinance, we needed to clarify that along with clarifying some other language. So as proposed, this ordinance clarifies that the Personnel Commission is comprised of 5 regular members and 2 alternates. The alternates must be the 2 most senior members of the Planning Commission who are not regular members of the Personnel Commission and only attend at the request of the chairperson. When it is anticipated that that there is an actual lack of quorum, or in the event that only 4 regular members are anticipated to attend a meeting. The ordinance also clarifies that a quorum of the Personnel Commission is 3 members, whether that is regular or alternates. And lastly, the proposed ordinance also amends the section of the code that relates to the duties of the of the Planning Commission to reflect the same revisions as we are suggesting in the Personnel Commission. The adoption of the ordinance does not affect the present appointments of the Personnel Commission, and there is also language in the proposed amendment that confirms that the individuals currently holding office are regular members.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any questions?
Does council have any questions? The HR
No.
director?
Just cleaning up the language.
Anybody in the public have any questions tonight? Okay, with that, we'll refer it back to council. So what if the Personnel Commission calls the director or the chair of the Personnel Commission calls for those 2 alternates and the other 2 members actually show up? What do? They sit in on the meeting anyway, or?
They would only be called if there was a lack of quorum.
And you can only know if there's a lack of quorum at the time of the meeting, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Once we have a request to have a personnel appeal and or at a time when we were needed to call another meeting, but on the majority of the time we only call meetings as they are required, and that is primarily for an appeal. The other times that we may call a meeting meeting is if we're swearing in a new member. So the only time we would pull up an alternate member is if we were not able to meet the quorum, or we only had 4 regular members able to attend.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just add a clarification to that. Anticipating that that could be an issue where, let's say that we didn't anticipate a quorum, but a quorum did show up. The Personnel Commission chair had called the 2 alternates and they all showed up. The ordinance, as amended, says at no time shall more than 5 members, including alternates, participate in any matter before the Personnel Commission. So if 6 showed up, the 4 regular members and 1 alternate would participate. The 6th member would unfortunately have made a trip for nothing, but better that than us not have 5 members
These
to
are
participate.
highly sensitive matters.
Correct.
Right, as a rule, so you probably, the fewer the people,
Right.
you probably wouldn't want the other
Want
2
the
or the
sixth
other
member,
one
correct.
more than the quorum.
And
to
most of these
participate.
hearings are done in a closed session, in a confidential matter. It's only an open session hearing unless the employee requests it be a public hearing.
Yeah.
So you would not have more than the 5. That would be the maximum hearing.
The employee could actually request an open personnel commission hearing
Yes.
to dispute a personnel
A
issue.
disciplinary issue. But that would only be at the request of the employee. It does not. I've never had it happen.
And this is following a termination or a
Any-
any personnel action.
Majority of the time it is a punitive type discipline, but under POBAR, they could actually carry a letter of reprimand clear to the Personnel Commission hearing.
So I was at another group meeting last week, and there was an issue with the employee evaluation, and the issue was, is there anything material? Is there anything you're going to say about that this employee has done? Are you going to make allegations of improper conduct? Pretty high bar. And if so, you've got to give that employee 24 hours notice. In that case, if there's an allegation of improper conduct, say someone's terminated for cause, does the Personnel Commission have to meet to decide whether that 24 hours has to be provided to the employee, or can that be a city decision?
Mr. Mayor, the Personnel Commission acts when the individual actually appeals that decision. So we don't unilaterally call the Personnel Commission to hear anything with respect to a termination. Would only be triggered if that individual appealed.
Okay, so any kind of timeline that's triggered doesn't really involve the Personnel Commission. It involves the HR department and the city manager.
Only the timing on when
And
an appeal has to be heard, but we can also agree to extend certain appeal periods as well.
Would that extend the appeal out if there are allegations of improper conduct?
Those are the
wrongful conduct?
only matters that would go before the Personnel Commission anyway.
Okay, so there's no additional bar there's no additional timeline that has to be provided to the employee once the disciplinary or the termination
We've complied
decision
with
has
all
been
of to be able to
delivered.
discipline a person or to do whatever we need to do with that individual. We've already complied with all the timing. So it doesn't come to the Personnel Commission until after all of the necessary time periods have run.
Does the Personnel Commission meet that often?
No.
Pretty rare.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, in the last 3 years, I was on the Personnel Commission and I participated in the last two hearings.
There were
And
2.
I want to tell you that you did a great job.
Thank you.
It's very, 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 very sensitive.
It is.
Everybody has their own attorneys. We have our own attorney, and I think you've done a good job representing the city.
Thank you.
And I think we have a really good group, and they're really open-minded. They take care of the city of Selma.
And so after the personnel, thank you for that. So after the Personnel Commission, it goes to the City Council no matter what, as
Yes.
for review. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The City Council has the final decision. The Personnel Commission, they submit a written recommendation to the council for their final decision.
Okay. And this is more or less a cleanup?
A cleanup, correct.
Okay. So with that, we'll refer it back to the council to clean this up, given that the Streets and Traffic Commission is no more, to add the 2 alternates from the Planning Commission.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, just a reminder that because this is the introduction of an ordinance, again, it requires two parts, two different motions. The first would be to waive the reading in full and read by title only, and then a second motion would be necessary to actually introduce the ordinance.
Okay. Is there a motion to waive the reading?
I'll make the first motion to waive.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye. And part two, is there a motion to?
I'll make a
I need
motion.
to
Mr.
read
Mayor, she
the-
needs to read the.
Just read it first.
Oh, thank you.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Selma, California, amending sections 2-2-3 and 2-2-4 of Chapter 2 and Section 2-1-2 of Chapter 1 of Title 2 of the City of Selma Municipal Code regarding the composition of the Personnel and Planning Commissions.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Is there a
I'll
second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye. Okay, that will move on to departmental reports. City Manager Gallivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to remind everybody that City Hall will be closed Thursday in observance of Independence Day, and we encourage everybody to come out and celebrate with us at the city's fireworks show at the high school on July 3rd. And if you are celebrating at home, to please celebrate with safe and sane fireworks.
Thank you. City Attorney.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Assistant City Manager.
Budget books the budget has been posted to the city website, so it is available now for the public. Is there any council member that would actually like a hard copy printed for them? It's pretty thick. Just want to give you the option. It's about that thick. You want one? Sure. Okay. That's it.
You have
That's
a
all I have.
PDF?
Huh?
Do you have a PDF?
It's on the city website.
We
I
can
can
just
send it to
save
you if
it.
you'd like.
No,
We can just save it from the website onto our system,
Yeah,
right?
you can just download it.
Just
But
give me the hard.
I'll go ahead and send it out so everybody has it. But if you want a manual copy, I'll be happy to give you one.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
I'm still old school.
Public Works Director Shane.
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to Fire Chief Peterson.
And just to piggyback on to what the city manager said, just a reminder, be safe and be responsible this week. Safe and sane fireworks. A lot of people will ask what, excuse me, a lot of people, well, what is safe and sane? And just kind of a basic reminder that anything that explodes or goes into the air is considered illegal. And we haven't had a major fire or injury, knock on wood, over the last couple of years, and would like to keep that trend going. So.
You got that new fire
Keep that
truck
going,
ready to go.
All right, thank you. Police Chief Gardner.
I'll be talking to the fire chief about making those kind of predictions, but nothing to report.
Thank you. All right, Parks and
Mike?
Community Services.
Mayor Robertson, Member City Council, just kind of a little fun housekeeping today. July is Parks and Recreation Month, and so the California Parks and Recreation Society has collaborated with a company called Agents of Discovery. So if you go to your Apple game Play Store, you can download the Agents of Discovery, and our recreation coordinator, Liz Martinez, has set up all 6 of our parks. If you kind of remember the game Pokemon, it kind of works the same. You're going to have 6 little dots at each park. The kids can run around with their cell phones. Nowadays, kids have cell phones or borrow their mom or dad's, and they will run to that spot, and there'll be a little interesting animal question or some kind of a nature questions. And so it's just encouraging outdoor play. This is free to the city for the month of July. If we get a lot of response, and we're going to apply for an ongoing free. If not, we're going to look at it. There's a yearly cost at it, but we're able to track how many kids and parents are taking advantage of it. So just something fun. We promote it on Facebook. I know the Selma Enterprise did a little story too for us. So just a little interactive fun when you go to the parks.
Nice. And then how's the flat screen going at Lincoln Park?
Getting another quote. I actually went to the company who provided the Floral and Whitson and downtown. I'm sorry, when you enter into Selma on 99. Tony Lockridge had given us 2 more companies to look at. So.
All right, sounds good.
He recommended you and I talked about just the one side and angle it to the street too.
Angle it at the park.
We could save a lot of money instead of trying to do it two-sided.
Okay. And then, once that comes down, what's the timeline on that? Once the quote comes in? In terms of,
Just
is it
finding the
turnkey
funds
with
and
the
then-
does he do the masonry as well, or just the flat screen?
No, he'll do just the flat screen, and he'll recommend a company who can do. He mentioned doing the same company that they use with to do the rock, that has the rock base on the existing one. So he has kind of the same match.
Sounds nice, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, we'll move back to council reports. Councilman Trillo?
Just a little input. These last 2 weeks have been really interesting, really busy. I just want to acknowledge Bob Chamber and the Cancer Support Group. The Selma Business Alliances have been having lots of meetings, and we're having a fundraiser event September 29th, and my business has donated a pretty good amount. We're excited, and we're excited for you guys. And this is fun because this is pretty good amount of business owners, and we will be able to support our community, and hopefully we keep doing it. It's a big investment, but I'm happy. I didn't think it was gonna be so busy or so comments, but we're on it. So more information coming soon, but that's it.
Great, thank you. Councilperson Guerra?
Okay, I attended the chamber mixers for Second Chance Animal Shelter. I also attended one of the farmers market and the groundbreaking for the new police station. And I helped with the lighting on Sunday. I probably didn't do that much, but I was more probably the gopher. But I'd like to give a special thank you to Shane Farrell for helping us out with that. And Mark Alves, that really, you guys did just a phenomenal job, and we really thank you. And the citizens really, really appreciate it. And Bob and Mary Ellen for coming out as well. Teresa Herrera, Jesse Crouch, and Scott and Rose, of course, Robertson, and my husband. But with everything, Teresa and Ken. Sorry about that. But if you go by and take a look at it, go about 8:30, 9 o'clock, Shane, the lights look beautiful. And I think we're going to continue to do that. With Bob, we're going to work on getting 2nd Street also done. It's going to look beautiful. So little by little, baby steps we're taking, but we're going to get there. So thank you.
Thanks for those burritos. Councilman Avalos?
Okay. Now, yeah, I went to the Second Chance, the festival for the hot dogs for the kids. The wife won a gift. She hasn't shared with me yet, so it's okay. But also, I went to the Latino Government and Council of Government of Fresno, and actually, they're bringing back T-Mobile to more identification on their T-Mobile situation.
Yes.
Yeah, because the government wants the Latino mayors, they want more definite what is actually going on. Okay. And and also I attended United Selma King Health Care. They had a taco truck going on this week, and for the employees and the patients.
Oh, nice.
From 12 to 2, you know. And I just happened to smell the taco truck, and I pulled in. No, I'm kidding.
That
no.
good?
No, it was good. And also, I also said goodbye to one of our pastors in our community, over 20 years in our community, Pastor Humberto Jimenez, and it's sad to see, one of our spiritual leaders that's been in the community for a long time. But I understand he's going back home to L.A. And he's been, how would I say it, promoted. And but in life, spiritual leaders are, I guess, in life, whatever God sends you, you have to go sometimes and do God's work. And I commend those people in our community very much, because they're well needed in our community, because they keep our people kind of in a straight and narrow life in our ways. So it was tough saying goodbye to him. But with the good thing about it, he lives real close to my cousins, so I get to see him really.
Thanks for going
Actually, yeah. So that's a good thing in life. So and also I always say that people that work in the city of Selma, I always thank them very much, because you know what? Without you guys, Selma's wouldn't look as good as it does now. The people from the staff, fire, police, Teresa, the management, people all the way down. It's very important in our community that these people are hardworking, very hard in our community. Don't forget, I didn't forget you, Isaac. But those people are very key. I call them the unsung heroes in our community, and I always thank them very much. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, first of all, just to restate, have a happy Independence Day to everyone out there this week, and hopefully they enjoy the family time or the fun time they have off on Thursday. Not really much to report. I just wanted to ask City Manager, when I inquired about Caltrans last meeting, you said they were on their schedule, but I don't recall, or I didn't hear the date. Did they give us a date of when they're going to come and address our exits?
We will double check on that. They did come out and do the removal of the encampment. But
Right.
as far as getting the weeds down, let me follow up on that and get back to you.
Okay. And also, Shane, the islands on the exits always confused. The islands are our responsibilities under the overpass, or is that Caltrans? Under the floral overpass, those islands in there, or I don't know if they're ours or Caltrans.
They're Caltrans.
Okay.
They're Caltrans'
Yeah.
responsibility. However,
How about the sidewalk?
sidewalk is Caltrans also.
Okay,
You're talking
okay.
underneath the overpass?
That explains why they're all a mess.
It's
Okay.
Caltrans also. However, if we don't have the patience to wait for Caltrans, let me know,
They're
and
starting
we'll
to get
we'll
out
get
of-
out there and see what we can do about it.
Okay. All right. And you mentioned, now that we're on it, you mentioned you were doing the repaving this season. Have you started yet? Restriping? or
Restriping.
Yeah.
Restriping, we had a little hiccup with our paint truck. We should have it running tomorrow, and we should be out painting officially tomorrow.
Okay, and you just went all over the city where needed, correct?
We're going to start off with all the schools first, being that school's out, and get that taken care of, all the yellow crosswalks, slow school crossings, and then we'll move on.
Okay,
after
I
that.
did have somebody mention that it's hard for them to see the lines on Highland.
Highland,
By Home Depot.
I'm aware of it, and I will address it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Speaking of the Nazarene Church, Pastor Mena, there are some members who are uncomfortable at night in having their prayer groups, Bible groups, from across the street, the Blue House on Sylvia. That's boarded up, chopped off in the top there, and the property managers from Los Altos. I've talked to our code enforcement officer, Javier Vidrio, about it several times, and he goes out there, but they just keep coming back, and I know the property manager has come out. And again, from Los Altos, there's not a lot of direct, contact there. So this has been a chronic thing for months and months. I've driven by it. There are people living there. I don't think there's any running water, any PG&E there. They just come back. They chase them off and they come back. I'll give it to you after the meeting. But what's the process for demoing a building that's just chronically a magnet for vagrancy
Mr. Mayor, members of the
and
council.
misery to the neighbors?
Unfortunately, because of property rights that are given to us under the Constitution, the city has to go through a process. We have to have records of notices of violation. We have to get an abatement warrant. We can't simply go in unilaterally because we've had a number of problems. I don't believe my office has been contacted about any code enforcement issues, so.
Can we look at moving forward on that? I mean, we've got churches in the area, we've got residents in the area. It's a problem.
If we can get the information from you on the location, and then we can circle back with
And
the
I know
city
the
attorney and code
officer's
enforcement.
been out there several times now.
That
So I'll give you-
documentation will be helpful.
I'll give you that location, but they're they're in their Bible study class and they're trying to get in. They're trying to get in the church, so it's just they shouldn't have to deal with that, and I see them around. Okay, so just to piggyback on that, there is a statewide move where some of the cities are starting to look at using motels as places for the homeless. Motels that have previously been places of prostitution and crime, they've been start to be repurposed as homeless shelters. Is that something that has had any legal challenges yet, or something that's actually moving forward in California?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, under state law, I believe our zoning code has to allow locations where homeless shelters are located. I think it would be an issue if one of these areas that was not permitted to have homeless shelters, suddenly a homeless shelter popped up. So of course it's a zoning code enforcement
So housing
issue.
is a huge deal with this governor. It's his number one priority.
Correct.
And homelessness is right along with it as a related issue and problem. And I'll bet if we looked at this issue, there'd probably be something where we could expedite that rezone. I've actually talked with Supervisor Mendez about it, and the response that I received was, you do have to rezone. You have to go to the planning commission and you have to rezone it as a shelter. And those are businesses right now, so there's always that issue there. But there might be something to look at in terms of the criminal activity that has gone on at those places, and if there are any mitigating factors, or if there's any way for them to coexist, for the businesses to stay in business and also to function as places for the homeless to go. Okay, that I'll just move on to my events. I attended a ribbon cutting at G.J. Gardner's celebrating the new owner's acquisition from the previous longtime owners. That was very nice, passing the baton there. I was chosen at COG to be on the contract renegotiation committee for Moses Stites contract renewal. I was honored to do that. I was at the Second Chance Animal Shelter for the June Chamber Mixer. Thanks to the Chamber for having that June Mixer there. I understand the burgers were well done. I also attended the Southeast Regional Solid Waste Commission meeting in Parlier last Monday. That area's been closed since the year 2000, but they still have a commission and they're still meeting about it. But not a whole lot's going on there.
I thought they're gonna dissolve it.
They can't.
Yep,
They can't.
until the land is clean.
It's still,
It's a cleanup
it's still
site.
on, okay. Wow.
There's still issues there, but the fees have not changed. It's still $3.50 that each jurisdiction has to bill their waste management entities for each ton of solid waste that they have. So the costs are not going up to each jurisdiction for the at least for the next year. I attended the groundbreaking for Selma's new police station. I attended the Council of Governments meeting Thursday night from 5:30 to 7:30. That was very interesting. There's a discussion going on right now to reauthorize Measure C, which is the half-cent sales tax fund for transportation needs for Fresno County. The current measure, I think it started in 2006, and I think it's reauthorized every 10 years. And the current measure expires 2026. It's been really very successful. And so there's talk now, and there'll be more of a presentation in September, but there's talk and people trying to get some sponsors together to do an advertising campaign to get it approved get it on the ballot a couple years ahead of time, because the projects at the end of the measure don't really get funded, and they don't, if you get to the end of it, like we're getting there, the projects can run out of steam and not get fully funded. So that's an issue there that some folks want to see about solving. There's a list of surplus computer accessories I'll give to the city manager at the end if anybody wants some. They have some at COG. Look for more electrical vehicle charging stations. Following the Board of Supervisors vote, EV stations have been approved at all the libraries, so there might be more coming in there, which would be nice. I cleaned kennels on Saturday at the animal shelter. I volunteered afterwards at the softball tournament at Schaefer Park on Saturday. It was good turnout. Parking was good, and the bathrooms were good, other than the person that was in there causing trouble, but he took off after that, so that was good, and the kids got to play their game, so that was good, and enjoy the park. Operation Beautify on Sunday was a success when our Public Works Director, Shane Farrell, and business owner Mark Alves put their concept and design together to bring lighting to downtown Selma on High Street between 1st And second, we had a number of volunteers that came out, including, I think we've heard before, Johnny and Tabitha Valdez, Jesse Crouch, Armando and Sarah Guerra, Teresa Herrera, Bob and Mary Allen, Ken Van Vechten and Teresa Gallivan, and Scott and Rose Robertson. I'm going to say thanks to the Chamber, Bob Allen, Mary, for buying the lights, and to Robertson Guerra Insurance Agency for buying the rest, the cable and the food. Our goal was to make the High Street a little bit brighter, a little bit safer, a little bit nicer looking, in order to get more people downtown at night, for more evening walks and to spend more time, and ultimately to bring downtown back as a place to live, a place to shop and eat. And I hope we're on the course to doing that. And I hope this beautification effort can keep going and move to other areas of the town. So everyone, I want to wish a safe and happy 4th of July. And remember, Second Chance will have no reclaim fees from July 3rd to July 6th, when a lot of our pets get out. So if you find your animals missing after that, definitely give us a call or come by the shelter. With that, we'll have our last oral communications. Does anybody else like to step up and say anything? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to
We
adjourn.
are adjourned.
Second.